Growing up, I spent almost every summer at my grandparents' cabin by the lake. It was quiet, isolated, and honestly, a little creepy even during the day. The water was always perfectly still, like a sheet of glass. Sometimes, the mist would hang over it in the mornings, making the whole place look frozen in time. Last year, I decided to spend a weekend there alone. It was supposed to be a break from everything. No phones, no noise, just me and the lake. The first day went smoothly. I unpacked, cleaned a little, and even managed to fish off the dock for a few hours. But that night, something weird happened. I couldn't sleep. I kept feeling like someone was watching me through the windows. Every creak of the old cabin sounded too loud. Around 2 a.m, I thought I heard footsteps outside, but when I looked, there was nothing. I told myself it was just animals and forced myself to sleep. The next evening, I sat on the dock around sunset. The water was dead calm. I remember tossing pebbles into it just to watch the ripples break the surface. That's when I noticed something strange. In the reflection, across the lake, there was someone standing near the trees. It was too far to see clearly, just a dark figure. I looked up directly across the water, but I didn't see anyone there. Only when I looked back down at the reflection, they were still there. I thought maybe it was a trick of the light, or that I was just tired. I stared at the spot for a long time, but the figure didn't move. Finally, trying to shake it off, I went back inside. That night was worse. Around midnight, I heard the back door rattle, like someone was trying the handle. It lasted just a second, and then silence. When I got the courage to check, the door was still locked, but the doorknob was wet, even though it hadn't rained. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was all in my head. I went back to the dock with a coffee, just to enjoy the morning before packing up. But as I sat there, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. In the reflection again, someone standing right at the edge of the dock, maybe 3 feet behind me. Heart hammering, I spun around, and there was no one. I didn't waste any more time. I grabbed my bag, locked up the cabin, and left. On my way out of town, I stopped for gas at the only station nearby. The old man at the register asked if I'd been out at the lake alone. When I said yes, he just shook his head and muttered, "You're lucky." I asked him what he meant, but he didn't answer. He just gave me a look that still makes me uncomfortable when I think about it. I haven't been back since. Even now, I sometimes wonder if it really was just my mind playing tricks on me. But sometimes, when I'm near a calm body of water and catch a glimpse of something that shouldn't be there in the reflection, I remember that weekend, and I don't stick around to find out. When I was 19, a group of friends and I decided to spend a weekend camping at Hollow Lake. It wasn't a well-known place, just a small, quiet lake deep in the woods that a few locals knew about. We heard it was peaceful, and we wanted something away from crowds. The first day was perfect. We set up our tents right near the water, grilled some food, and stayed up late talking by the fire. There was no cell service out there, but none of us cared. It felt good to disconnect. Around midnight, the fire started to die down, and we all began getting ready for bed. That's when we heard it, a splash coming from the lake. At first, we laughed it off, thinking it was just a fish or maybe a beaver. But then we heard another splash, louder this time, like something heavy had fallen into the water. We all turned toward the lake, trying to see through the darkness, but the surface was calm, untouched. It was weird, but none of us wanted to seem scared, so we climbed into our tents and called it a night. Around 3 a.m, I woke up to the sound of footsteps outside my tent. Soft, careful steps, moving slowly around us. I held my breath, listening. I could hear the others shifting quietly inside their tents too. They were awake. The footsteps circled our camp for what felt like forever. Then they stopped, right next to my tent. I stared at the thin fabric, half expecting to see a shadow or a hand press against it. But there was nothing, just silence. Eventually, after what felt like hours, I must have drifted off. In the morning, we all talked about it. Every one of us had heard the footsteps, but when we checked around the campsite, there were no footprints, nothing disturbed, not even near the muddy edge of the lake. We tried to laugh it off, but the energy was different that day. We packed up quickly, not saying much. Just before we left, I walked down alone to the lake one last time. The water was so still, it looked like black glass. But as I stood there, I noticed something. Far across the lake, just standing at the tree line, was a person, or at least it looked like one, completely still, watching. I stared for maybe 30 seconds, frozen. I wanted to believe it was just another camper, maybe someone out hiking early. But there was something wrong about how still they were. They didn't move at all. Not even when I turned and shouted to my friends. By the time they got there, whoever or whatever it was gone. We didn't stick around after that. Later, when I told an older guy at a gas station about it, he just shrugged and said, "Things move around that lake sometimes. Best not to bother them." He wouldn't explain more, just said Hollow Lake had always been strange. I don't know what we heard that night. I don't know who or what I saw standing across the water. But I do know that when you're deep in the woods, far from anyone who can help, sometimes you realise you're not as alone as you think.